All right. So I'm very excited and happy to be here. Today we are having Bhasin, a.k.a. Zeneca, with us. He's been a powerful voice in the Web3 and blockchain space with over 400,000 followers across platforms. He's the founder of Zen Academy, the 333 Club, and he's also here to share some of the insights with us. So Zeneca, Roy, it's a pleasure to have us here.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here again. I want to start off with unfolding and talking a bit more about your background a bit. You played poker professionally for years. Can you share the story a bit about how you got into poker and how you shifted with time to crypto and blockchain?
Yeah, so basically from 2005 to 2021, I was playing poker professionally. I got in because in 2005, I was still in high school and I had some friends that were, they would play a little bit. It was on TV, it was everywhere. And so I've always loved games. And so I kind of just got really hooked at that point. And I have like this, excuse me, I'm going to sneeze. Oh no, it's gone. I have this like very obsessive, addictive personality where if I find something, I like tend to just like go crazy about it. And so like that was poker for me initially, where I just sort of went online, started, reading online forums. I got books, I read books, I just studied a lot and I was loving it.
Game theory or just poker at the beginning?
Poker in general at the time. Game theory, I did like maybe 5-6 years into my poker career. I started to study game theory a bit more, but it began with just the basics about like, the fundamentals of poker and how to like think about statistics and odds and stuff like that. And yeah, was able to go online and make a little bit of money and then keep making enough money over 15, 16 years to sort of support myself and more or less make a living out of it. So that was the whole poker thing. And that's a whole other story in and of itself. But I think there's a lot of like overlap from poker to crypto. A lot of people sort of make that jump. There's a lot of similarities dealing with money and trading and statistics and probabilities. And so in 2017, I like dabbled a little bit in crypto. When the bear market hit in 2018, though, I like left because I didn't have that deep conviction. It was very much a speculative thing for me at the time. And then in 2021, I had a friend, Jamie, who started talking to me a bit more about NFTs and DeFi and did I know like anything that was going on? And I didn't. And so we started sort of learning together about this whole space. And that's kind of when in like March 2021, March, April, I was like, all right, there's so much stuff happening here. This is the future. I want to dedicate all my time and energy into like building in this space and being in this space. And so that's when I really went all in.
Do you remember a pivotal moment or anything new or maybe a specific conversation that led you to, okay, that's the future, as you've said?
Yes, I do actually. There was there's this really fantastic newsletter written by a guy, Packy McCormick, and he has a Substack called Not Boring. And he wrote this piece, Power to the Person or Power to the People, about the creator economy. And that was the one that to me that just made it all click. And since then it was like, yeah, I get it.
Yeah, and it's still a great newsletter, so I definitely would.
Yes, 100%.
Talking about recommendations, game theory for anyone that's interested. I'm a bit off topic, but we'll get to it in a second. For the people that are curious to learn and dig more into game theory, do you have any book or two in mind?
Actually, I don't know any good books. So for me, there was this like free online course. I think like Yale University, from like one of the big ones in America. They had like an introduction to game theory course. And so that was how I started to learn the basics and fundamentals of game theory. And then what I would learn was more like applying it to poker and like, so less game theory as a general sense and more in a poker sense, like what it means to play like game theoretically optimal and things like that. And it just sort of, a lot of the learnings through game theory were very specifically applicable to poker. And so I don't really have any great recommendations, unfortunately, in terms of books.
You do have the recommendation for the intro course, so it's more
hopefully it's still out there and free. It was really, really great. Yeah.
Cool. And I'm asking about game theory because that's some of the things, correct me if I'm wrong, the skills and lessons that you applied from poker to crypto. Can you talk about game theory and maybe other skills or lessons that you applied from poker to the crypto and Web3 space?
Yeah, I would say it's probably less about game theory, more about things like bankroll management and understanding odds and probabilities, like an expected value. So in poker, it's very common to like put money into the pot when you're most likely going to lose because the 10% of the time that you win, you're going to win a lot of money or something like that. And I think that NFTs and crypto is the same in many ways, where if you're trying to invest or trade, a lot of the time it's like, all right, 90% of the time I buy this thing, it's gone to zero, but 10% of the time it's going to like do a 30x. And so like statistically, that's something that you should be taking that bet over and over and over again. And that sort of like mindset really helped me navigate the crypto space. And then
you're talking mainly about investing and trading.
Investing and trading, yeah.
Yep.
And then like psychologically as well, I think in poker, you just get very used to variance and like making lots of money, losing lots of money, and the swings and everything involved there. And that helped in this space as well, because it can be really crazy and like you just a wild the swings in this space. And so fortunately I had that experience that I didn't just like completely spiral out of control and like, you know, I think a lot of people tend to do that in this space if they're not used to, you know, making or losing large sums of money. They don't know how to handle it. And I'm fortunate that you know, sure it sucks, but it doesn't like ruin my life.
Mm-hmm. And I'm where you're talking about like that mentality when it comes to investing and trading, but we're seeing it reflecting not only about the investors and traders, but overall about the narrative itself, and to other builders and entrepreneurs and investors. Eventually, it's the cycle. And I'm quoting a recent tweet actually of yours. I want to start with the tweet itself. You said the most important thing you can do to thrive in Web3 is to survive in Web3. I'd love if you could dive deeper to that concept, and what's your definition for surviving in Web3 currently?
Yeah. So, I mean, I've said this thing a few times over the course of the last 2 years, and the idea behind it is that so many people end up either burned out or broke. They lose their money, they lose their conviction, they get bored, they just lose attention into the space, which was exactly what happened to me in 2018. I left. But this is really like these bear market times is where the greatest opportunities lie. I think during bull markets, I mean, there's a saying that like fortunes are sowed in the bear market and reaped in the bull, or like in bear markets are for builders. So whether you're like an investor or trader, or you're trying to like build a platform, a protocol, a project, bear markets are just great for like making connections and networking, and there's just so many great opportunities. And I think that leads to like thriving in the space. It leads to like all sorts of good things. And unfortunately, a lot of people end up leaving the space at times like this because they, again, either just like get burned out, or they went too hard, or they lose all their money. And it's really about like the opportunity cost of not being here that is so significant. So it's many times, like, let's say you put $5,000 in and you lose all $5,000. It's like, okay, that sucked. You lost 5,000, but you didn't just lose 5,000. You lost, and especially if you leave the space or don't put any more money in, you lose out on all the potential opportunities that might have come across if you had to had that 5,000 to invest in something else, or just, you know, we're still in the space to connect and build and find jobs and opportunities. So I think that the opportunity cost of like not being in this space is enormous, because I truly believe that like the future of the internet is being built on blockchain, decentralized technology, and it's like the internet in the 90s. Yes, it's a bubble. Yes, it's speculative. Yes, there's way hyped up valuations and madness and things like that. Yeah. And a lot of people gamble and get wrecked, but the internet's still here. It's still a thing. And Web3 is not going anywhere.
And for the people that are, maybe they're interested too, and they're investing in crypto or NFTs, maybe both, but they're into building and integrating these sets of technologies too. We are seeing a lot of obviously regulation and so many other problems and challenges that they're facing, but we'll talk about them too. But if I'm trying to look at the half full glass currently, in terms of opportunities and use cases that you think we didn't discover yet, or it's still in the making, what are some of the things that you're more excited about?
It's hard to say, because there's so many different areas in this space, like Web3, NFTs, crypto. It's everything. It's
a set of technologies that you can apply to so many different industries.
Yeah, art, gaming, culture, music. You know, metaverse, payments, logistics, healthcare, real estate. It could be anything. I think the opportunities are in, I mean, at the end of the day, the biggest money opportunities, etc., will come from whoever can figure out solving real problems and like providing value to humans in the world. And how can you use this technology to improve, to either create a brand new product or service, or to take an existing one and make it better. And I think that like that's where the real opportunity lies. And I don't have the answers to like what those are, but I know there's like lots of smart people building in this area, and there's going to be like so many more applications and use cases to come that haven't even been thought of yet, or that no one's working on. I would always think about like, how can you provide value to people at the end of the day and actually like make their lives better? I think a lot of what we see in this space is people building very cool things, but they're not building them for anyone. It's just like they're never going to have users. They're never going to have customers. They're never going to have clients because they don't actually solve real problems. They're just like, oh, look what we can do with blockchain technology. And it's like, yes, that is cool. You can do that. But does anyone want that? Is it going to add value? Is it just being cool for the sake of being cool? Is it too complicated, too convoluted? So whoever can like crack that nut, almost like Apple did with like the iPhone, and like just get that product that makes consumers' lives better and easier. That's really where the big opportunity lies. But just, you know, there's a million much smaller use cases and like applications and websites and services that people can build that would also help people's lives. And I'll be focusing on trying to think about what those things are.
100%. I'll just add to that, because I've learned, and I've learned it from other interviews with founders that I interviewed. And I used to think that, okay, it's a set of technologies, and usually the way to actually solve real world problems is you probably had an experience in an industry in the past. So whether it's music, gaming, whatever, and then you can apply this set of technologies and solve and create a better solution. Maybe it's faster, maybe it's more efficient, maybe it's more secure, maybe it's a mix of them. And I've learned that it's not always the truth, because I've learned and other people's story and other founders, and some of them doesn't have anything related to their past industry, but they're just applying this set of technologies because they learned enough about it, and now their mind open up to this whole technology and all new opportunities. So to the question, eventually it's just a skill set. It's not always, and we are seeing on the other way, I'll turn it around. We're seeing sometimes people that are forcing and using crypto and Web3 for no reason, especially a year or 2 years ago. Now we're seeing it less, but so two sides to the coin. You faced many challenges, and you're still facing, I'm sure, in your journey, and whether it's in Zen Academy, which we'll talk about in the later on in the podcast. Can you tell us about a specific instance or specific challenge that you've been through, and how you managed to turn around the situation, or just bear through? And
so in November 2021, I launched two projects, Zen Academy and the 333 Club, both kind of like
them both simultaneously
at the same time. It was effectively like 2 tiers of membership to like a membership community. And with the 333 Club was designed to be a much more exclusive group, 333 people maximum, and targeted towards founders and builders and people who sort of maybe wanted some advice and access to me, consulting services, that kind of stuff. And so I put out like an application form for people to apply, so I could sort of curate the community a little bit ahead of time. And there was something like, 1,000 to 1,500 people who filled out this form over the course of a few weeks, and for 333 spots. So I thought like, oh, wow, there's going to be, there's significant demand. People want in. Let me, let's go to mint and select the people and let's do it. And then on mint day, there was like 2 mints or 3 mints. And it was just like, all right, I missed the mark. People aren't minting. What went wrong? And that was like a setback, because I was expecting one outcome and got a completely different one. And it was not what I was expecting. And then so I sort of went back to the drawing board and was like, well, what went wrong? And it was like, I didn't market well. I didn't like communicate too well with the people, all these kind of things. And so there's sort of like over the course of the next few months, ended up reaching out via DM, just like manually DM'd a lot of the people that had applied and just wanted to check in and see if they're still interested in joining. And that process took months, and but it was a great learning experience, and definitely led to a good outcome at the end of the day.
Just talking to the users.
Yeah, exactly.
And we spoke about your background. You played professional poker. where did you acquire, or when did you acquire along the journey, the skill set of marketing, of that knowledge, just practice and in practice, and just on top of that you learned through what? To the people that are curious and are clueless, maybe they are in the beginning of their journey and they want to acquire the skills too. Besides
marketing
Academy.
Marketing is something that I don't think I'm particularly great. I think I was terrible at it 2 years ago when I launched Zen Academy. I had no idea what marketing, anything about that. Now I think I have a much better understanding. I still don't think that I'm like an excellent marketer or I'm very good at it. It's just sort of you learn along the way and you just try and consume, and like by being in the space, specifically this space so much, and just like observing other projects and looking at what works and what doesn't work, and look at other people who are great at marketing and try and emulate some of that and take inspiration. All of that like comes together and like gives you the experience to try and get a better feel for marketing. But marketing has never been, I think, my strongest suit. Marketing and sales are two things I'm not particularly good at. I think like writing and creating content and that kind of stuff is the stuff that I am good at, that I've always sort of liked to write, and I've always been a writer, and that has kind of helped along the way. But everything else is just, you just learn with trial and error and see what works and see what doesn't.
What advice would you give for the young entrepreneur that's thinking about maybe has a few ideas to integrate this set of technologies? Maybe it's a specific one that hopefully actually solves a problem. He has little to no capital. Let's say he has a few $1,000s, maybe a bit more than that, and he doesn't have much connections. How would you suggest him to start off his, let's say, first 6 months?
Yeah, it's tough. I think do what you can to get like the MVP out, the minimum viable product out there, whatever it is you're trying to build. Just like it, maybe you build a product, maybe you get a pitch deck together of like exactly what you're trying to build, and then you have to like ship it around and like find others that want to join you. But I would say just get started. Like just, too many people I think have an idea and they're like, oh, one day I'll do this, or I'll work towards this, and first I need to do these other 10 things and I need to get better at this, and then I would say just like, get a Twitter handle, get a domain name, whatever your idea is, set up a business somewhere. It's usually pretty cheap and easy to do, all that kind of stuff. And then just like get your idea out in the world and just share it with as many people as you possibly can. Be annoying, be like, reach out to people and just like bring the idea up and just like ask for real direct and honest feedback. And chances are it's like, it's not going to be the thing that's going to be successful for you. If it's your first idea, your first product, your first thing, people will, some people will be like kind and nice and they're like, yeah, it's a great idea and, good luck. But then some people will hopefully be a little more honest and like actually give you meaningful feedback. And they're like, you know what, it's never going to work. Or, this has been tried, or like there's 10 other projects doing the exact same thing. So maybe you need to, and then you'll learn, you're like, well, okay, I need to try differently and try that. And then, just try it. And you'll learn so much in the process of doing, and you're going to make like a million mistakes. I made a million mistakes. Everyone does. But that's the best way to learn, is you just got to get your hands dirty and not be afraid to fail, because this is the best way to learn. It's just trying and failing.
Well, one of the things that you mentioned is get your Twitter handle, your Twitter handle, which played a very significant role in your progress and building. I'm curious how you came up with Zeneca, with this profile. Share a bit about it, how it all started.
Yeah, so I'm a big fan of Stoicism, Stoic philosophy, and there's a famous Stoic philosopher, Seneca, Zeneca with an S. And when I was creating my Twitter account, I was like just trying to find inspiration, and on my desk I had a book of Seneca's, and I said, oh, that's cool. That's kind of like, it's a bit of my personality. I like that. And then I thought, all right, I don't want to just copy that. Let me just think of, and then I like Buddhism a little bit, and like Buddhism and Stoicism are very similar. So there's a lot of the similar tenets. And so it just, in my mind, I was like, let's just merge Zen and Stoicism and Seneca together. And that's where Zeneca sort of came from. I
always knew it's related to Zeneca, to be honest, but I was curious to hear your story. What's practical steps would you give to someone that is starting out, or maybe did start out, it's going okay, in terms of like growing his own personal brand to whatever use case and needs he wants?
Yeah, I mean, growing a personal brand is, I think, a really powerful thing to do. Like, your personal brand can add so much value to whatever it is you're doing. I think when it comes to having a personal brand, being consistent is really important. So that's like whether it's using the same profile picture, the same name across platforms, the same colors in your branding and marketing, just making a good first impression, using like talking about the same stuff. Like it's difficult to build a personal brand. And so like be hyper niche. It's difficult to build a personal brand if you're talking about some specific Web3 company, but then you're tweeting about going to a concert on the weekend, and then you're tweeting your food pictures and just random things. It's like everything you sort of put out publicly should be on brand if you're trying to build a personal brand, just so people get to know that that's what they expect from you. And then once you grow and like get a larger following, that's when you can start to, I say, inject humanity, where it's like you take, like people do at a certain point want to know more about the person behind the brand. And that's where it's like, you can share a little more about your life, but for the first like portion, and when you like maybe 10,000, 20,000, 50,000 followers, or if it is growing a following that you want, you should be really niche, and people should know you for like one thing, and like, oh, this is a person that I go to because they provide this type of content, this kind of value, these thoughts, this is what their brand is all about. So like start off hyper niche and then grow from there.
You talked about your strengths of writing, and you leaned into that with Twitter at the beginning. And did you go heavy on Twitter, or did you go across the different platforms that are for writing? Threads wasn't a thing back then, but
Twitter, yeah. And I had a newsletter, a Substack newsletter. So it was those two that I went. Basically, that was where I would do 99% of my content creation. And then after a while, I started to spread out to LinkedIn, started creating YouTube videos and Instagram. But I actually think all of that was kind of a mistake. I think I should have just kept focused on Twitter and my newsletter, and just like kept growing that instead of trying to like try all these new things and go wide. I think it's better to just focus on your strengths and like clearly, again, I'm not great at creating videos or all that kind of stuff, but yeah, so play into your strength. And like some people are the opposite, where they're not good at writing, they don't like writing, it's difficult for them to write, but they're better, you know, behind a camera, or they're better hosting Twitter spaces, and so you can build a brand around what your strengths are. And sometimes you don't even want to be a public figure. You can still build a brand. It's kind of like your reputation that people know you for. It's all behind the scenes. I know people who have great personal brands in the space, but they have like no followers on Twitter, or they might not even have a Twitter account, but like people know them because they're doing impactful things and helping people. So yeah, play to your strengths.
I want to talk with you about the fact that of doxed and undoxed people in the space. Did you? I'm quite sure that you've been until a certain point completely anonymous, right?
It was never super intentional. So maybe for like a couple months, I was only Zeneca, and no one really knew my real identity. But pretty early on, I was like, yeah, okay, I'll hop on a YouTube show. No, I never set out to be anonymous. It was just sort of, oh, I have this Zeneca name and brand and personality. That's just me for a while. And then, oh, someone wants me to go on a YouTube show. Sure, I'll go on a YouTube show. I don't really care about people knowing who I am.
I want to talk with you about, we've covered a bit personal branding and how you should lean into your strength. In terms of growing a community, and obviously that's the holy grail of question of how to actually build a community that is actually authentic and engaged. So obviously there is no secret formula, no secret magic, and one of the things I'm sure that you'll say again, and you've talked about it, is actually talking to the users and being engaged with them. What other tips would you say? And I'll ask another thing, what things we should avoid and not do? So I think that's also something that people should bear in mind.
Yeah, I think give people like a reason to be part of the community that's substantive. And so like that's where a lot of communities are sort of like built on the back of a house of cards and like floor price and Ponzi-nomics, and like things are good when the price is going up, but when numbers going down, people are sad because they were there for the floor price. And I think like find something of value or substance that you can build a community around, and focus on that more than things that are like outside of anyone's control, like the floor price. And then very much like engage with that community. And I think that there's this really, really great blog post by Paul Graham, one of the co-founders of Y Combinator. It's do things that don't scale. And it's basically, for the first 1,000 community members or people, or, first few hundred or whatever, take the time to talk to them individually and really just put in one-to-one time. And obviously you can't do that when you have tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions, et cetera, customers, clients, community members, whatever it is. But to begin with, you really want to make people feel a meaningful connection to you. And the best way to do that is to put in the time and the effort and really just have that direct relationship with the core group and the early group, because then it will grow and they'll be your greatest ambassadors and supporters and help you as you continue to grow. And in terms of things not to do, again, I think it's be very careful being it's very tempting in this space to be vague and mysterious and hype things up and fuel the speculation. But I think it all comes crumbling down at a certain point. And it's the slow and the tortoise versus the hare, and being slow and steady is, it might take you a lot longer and you might miss out on some short-term gains. But I think over the long run, you're building something that will survive and have longevity instead of something that will just fizzle out.
Mm-hmm. So sometimes even if the intentions are good and you're really hyped out about it, still the famous quote is under promise and over deliver.
Yes. I think it's such a delicate balance and a fine line to walk, because you need to market and you need to market
show people the vision. So you need to
you want some excitement and hype and all that kind of stuff, but you want to do it in a way that under promise and over deliver is my personal motto, and I think it's a pretty safe one. But you might miss out on some crazy highs and experiences because of that. So
I want to touch a bit more about what you've said at the beginning of scaling that and unscalable, as Gary Vee is saying. And I've seen it firsthand from my bigger brother. He founded the largest finance and investing community in Israel, and both he and his co-founder, you can see even when they have tens of thousands and up to 2,100K members, they're still reaching out in the DMs when they have the time. Obviously, if it's physical meetups, you're seeing it, and you're seeing Gary doing the same in way larger scale. They meet and greet, and that's where we've met. It's insane to see it, and I couldn't agree more. And obviously, it applies to startups too. If Paul Graham is saying it, who are we to?
Exactly.
Yeah, for sure. We've talked a bit about personal brand. We talked a bit about the community. I want to unfold a bit more about Zen Academy. I'm sure there are many listeners that are curious what Zen Academy is all about. You talked briefly about it and about the 333 Club. Can you unfold it and share about the vision a bit?
Yeah, so we launched November 2021, and the epitome of under promise, over deliver. I had no roadmap, I had no vision, I had no plan. I just knew that I wanted to keep being in this Web3 space and building and creating content and engaging with people. And if it was going to be my full-time job and career, I thought it makes sense to monetize via an NFT and try and build something out of that community. And so with that in mind, we launched in late 2021. And then over the last 18 months we've just been trying a lot of things, experimenting, seeing what works, what doesn't. And all the way along, we've been building this really wonderful community of people who are just genuinely there for learning and education and connections and networking and events. And that is kind of the foundational pillars of Zen Academy. So I've created a bunch of educational courses on everything from introduction to NFTs, to how to launch a project, to how to grow and build your community, to mental health in the space. And I'm currently actually working on one for personal branding in Web3, because I think that's an important topic that a lot of people are interested in. And so Zen Academy is really just a community around this type of content for people that want to learn and have access to the content, but also to me and to other like-minded people. It's really this type of a community. And it's honestly, it's a lot of fun. And we have our PFPs coming out probably next month, 99% likely next month. And I think that, they're really just going to be a way to bring the community together even more. It's not we're not, again, promising the world. We're not going to be the next Disney. We have no metaverse or game or anything like that, but we have some amazing art that we're going to deliver to our community and hopefully more meaningfully grow the Zen Academy community because of that.
Mm-hmm. How would you say it's different? Zen Academy is different from other communities of builders and people that are interested about Web3 in general? What do you think differs you?
In a lot of ways, it's not significantly different. Like there are a bunch of other great communities out there for builders. I mean, I think that the singular thing is like me and my content. I think that's the differentiating factor between Zeneca, obviously, because I created it. It's
Again,
like, it's my
personal
community.
brand. Yeah,
Yeah, it's personal branding. And so
exactly.
like, if you like my content, if you like the types of things I create and the way that I create it and want to engage with that and have more, like I run weekly events, we have founders calls. It's very much a personal community and brand in a way that other communities are less tied to specific people. I think, I guess like a somewhat, obviously at a much different scale, but a somewhat similar analogy is like VeeFriends with Gary Vee. It's like, there are a bunch of IP projects, but I think why that has so much value is because it's Gary Vee's community and he is there and he is like doing things for the community and with the community and building it out. Now we're not doing IP, we're doing more content and education, but it's very, very connected to me. So like, I think the most differentiating factor is sort of me and my content, which is, you know, it's kind of a double-edged sword because yeah, it's like if I'm not around and if I get hit by a bus or if I'm not, it's going to really be, in some ways suffer. But like, thankfully at this point, such an incredible community has formed and we have such an amazing team of people that work alongside me at Zen Academy that if I disappear, it's like the community can like, is very self-sustaining and momentum and like people still come and connect with each other and have a really good time. And it's just all these excellent humans that have now sort of congregated in Zen Academy. And I see it growing every single day. And it's really wonderful to see.
And if I can summarize everything that you just said, and on top of that, what you mentioned on leaning into your strengths, Naval Ravikant, I'm not sure if you're familiar.
Oh yeah, he's amazing.
Very sure. Yeah, he just in 2 words, he said, productize yourself. So, and I think it's such, and if anyone doesn't heard about him, I highly recommend. He has a lot of threads on Twitter, and he has it's not his book that but it's a combination of a lot of threads and podcast interviews that he had. It's called The Almanac of Naval Ravikant. One of the best books I've read by far. Yeah. It's a great book, and it's again, it's that. So I'm asking you what it's all about. You're saying basically like VeeFriends, like Gary. Yeah. That's he's pushing his values, and he reflected it on an IP. You're saying pretty much the same. So, but I'm doing me. So
yeah, and it's a lot of projects talk about like revenue streams and how you're going to make money, and I think that it's very easy and clear. Like we live in this creator economy, and like I can quite easily monetize my content and my brand and do it in a way that can add value to the community and keep the community thriving as well. It's this beautiful, I think, flywheel of effects, and I think we're going to see more and more of it as time goes on. But yeah, the funny and ironic thing is like Paul G is saying do things that don't scale, and then Naval is saying do things that scale, like do things with high leverage. About
the forms of leverage and how you can apply them.
Yes, and I think both apply. Like you need to build with leverage in mind for the long term, but at the beginning, it's like you want to do things that don't scale. And I think like actually he's even living that. I'm pretty sure it's Naval. There's some new social network platform that he's involved in.
Yeah.
And he's like he's on there. He's chatting and having conversations. So you can speak with him, which is like obviously that's unscalable in the long term, but yeah.
100%. I want to touch on the landscape currently because you have Zen Academy, you have all the followers, and you're obviously speaking with a lot of other people in the space. What's the sentiment that you're feeling? And I'm not talking about the investors and traders. That's one thing. I want to talk and touch more about the actual builders and people that are building and trying to build. Some of them are in the process. Some of them are taking advantage of this period and starting to build. What's the sentiments like? If you can,
it's great. Honestly, it's like. On the trading side, it's like kind of we're in a bear market, people are a little down, but like when I speak to builders, like there's this excitement and people are happy and people are like really making great connections and building and trying things. And it's like in a bear market, you have that space to try and to like breathe, and in a bull market, it all gets crazy. Silence. Yeah. And you know, people are attending conferences and just like making it's honestly, it's like I speak to a lot of founders and builders in various capacities, and the energy is really high and people are excited. I think because we all kind of know that like this is the future. It's like there's this conviction. It's like this is the internet in the 90s. This is we are here for the future, and it's like it's going to be amazing. It's just like we just have to build and survive and get there, and it's fun. Yeah.
Well, and from talking with all of them and from hearing a lot, obviously, on the media too, what would you say is like the biggest, I would say maybe conventional wisdom or something that people are thinking that is right, but you're disagreeing with?
Ooh, that's a tough one. Nothing's immediately coming to mind. Let me think that people think are right.
Maybe something that people are advising to do, and you're hearing often these kind of advices or this kind of approach.
Yeah. No, nothing's coming to mind. I got nothing. I'll keep thinking. If something comes up, I'll let you know.
Interesting.
People,
Interesting.
but yeah.
We'll continue. It's fine.
Yeah.
100%. I want to talk about. I prepared it as a follow-up questions because obviously, and it's again human nature. We're going outside of crypto and Web3. As humans, we are often tribal. We're going to, and we're seeing it even in the crypto space. So we have Bitcoin maximalists and Ethereum maximalists, and in NFTs, obviously, we're seeing it way more with people going tribal. How would you, do you think it still affects us as the founders, obviously, and the builders, this tribalism and this maximalism, I would say, and I mentioned it a bit prior in the beginning of the podcast, of trying to force this set of technologies and just to say that I'm crypto and I'm Web3 native, regardless of other alternatives? You're still seeing it happens?
Yeah, I definitely still see it happens. I think maximalism is never good. It's just like, it's never good. It just by nature means you don't have an open mind. And I think the most powerful thing to have in the world is basically an open mind and a curiosity and a willingness to change your mind and all that kind of stuff. So I kind of really don't like maximalism of any sort. Obviously there's like big Bitcoin maxis and Ethereum maxis. And yeah, I think for the most part, those people are sort of missing the bigger picture. And I think if you're a founder or a builder, you should keep your eyes open and consider all options. Like a lot of people hate anything centralized. And I think that, there's a time and a place for centralization in the world, obviously. And so it just, having an open mind, I think is really, really important.
If you're talking about open mind and being flexible to new stuff and new industries, we're seeing a lot of the intersection of AI, which is very emerging, and it's like the new hot thing, like the Web3 of 2021, which is fine. But again, it's like a balance between, okay, I'm not pivoting exactly to AI, but I'm leveraging because it's technology that we can't overlook and we can't ignore it. How would you recommend to people to balance it out? If they're still very interested in Web3, but obviously they need to leverage and learn and lean into this type of technologies.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the 80-20 rule in general. I think like it just applies to so many things in life and makes a lot of sense, where spend 80% of your time in Web3 and 20% exploring new things. And that could be AI now. And you never know, that 20, it could flip and like, all right, you just keep exploring. And now all of a sudden you're spending 80% of your time in the AI space, and that happens organically. But just, it comes back to not being a maximalist and keeping 20% of your mental capacity available to explore and try new things and learn. And I think that, that is kind of how I would approach it.
Any other industries that you think are worth exploring for the people out there besides, which is obviously so big, and again, it's like saying Web3, like AI, okay, whatever. It's so broad.
AI is huge.
I
mean, I don't know enough to really know what else is out there. I think AI and blockchain are the two big ones. I think quantum computing is probably, it's sort of like there's interplays with both AI and blockchain, but I think it's something I'm just starting to learn more about now and dig into. And I think it's probably, maybe not over the next 1 or 2 years, but over the next decade, going to play an increasingly important role in our lives. And it's just like worth keeping an eye on the quantum computing space. Yeah.
Interesting. To wrap up before we're closing it with the rapid questions, I want to talk with you a bit about habits. Is there any habits that you dedicate yourself to and said that 1 or 2 that had the most impact on your life, whether it's on your personal life, business life, whatever?
I'm terrible with habits. I'm not the person that wakes up and has a cold shower and goes for a walk and meditates and does all this stuff. I've tried it in the past and it works. I feel good when I'm doing it, but I've just never been able to stick to it. Probably the best habit is getting sleep, like getting 7-8 hours of sleep as often as possible, as regularly as possible. I think that's overall the best habit you can possibly do. And a new one I'm trying to work on is I read this book, or I'm reading this book called Breath, and it's all about like how important breathing is and how, you can breathe the right way and the wrong way. And you should breathe longer and exhale longer and breathe through your nose. And so I'm just trying to like form this habit of better breathing. And I think that plus sleep is, there's so many micro habits, but I think if you think about it, a third of our life is spent sleeping. All of our life is spent breathing. If you can improve those habits, it's going to have such a bigger impact than spending 10 minutes a day journaling, even though that is a great habit. I'd rather just work on the big picture things and then maybe then implement some of the smaller things.
100%. Actually, one, it's a very interesting approach, seeing actually the bigger picture of how much we're spending time and then reflecting and trying to focus on that. But again, I think whether it's journaling or meditating, whatever your thing is, it's just again falling into the thing of leaning into your strengths. To me, it's like just experiment, see what works for you. And I think there is no one thing that works for everybody. Mm-hmm. The info suggests that it's actually true, and everyone has his own thing. But yeah, interesting. So you've mentioned sleep. And for other geeks, they're like myself and you that are interested in these kind of things, I will just recommend Andrew Huberman. It's
really good.
He exploded recently, so I'm assuming most of the listeners already know him. But if you're not, so he's a very interesting guy that explaining and simplifying very complex everyday life and the intersection with neuroscience and how you can apply it to real life. Amazing. Let's wrap it up with the rapid questions.
Let's do it.
All right, so we talked about books. If you could read only 3 books, which ones would you choose?
Letters from a Stoic by Seneca. The Three-Body Problem is a fiction book. It's a trilogy though, so I'm going to cheat and like say that is one book, the trilogy, because it's so good. And then one more book, I'll say Infinite Jest, because I've never read it and it's like 1,000 pages long and I always wanted to read it, and I think it'd be like one of those books that you could reread and appreciate, but it's very difficult to read. But yeah, those 3.
Infinite Jest. I'll take this question from Tim Ferriss. Favorite purchase under $100?
I'm looking around my desk now. Favorite purchase under $100. Trying to think of what I use every day. Probably like a good water bottle. Like just, like I've got this and I've had it for a long time, and it's just like
thinking about things that we should do and we're doing sleeping, breathing, drinking water.
That, also a pen. Like I got a nice fountain pen, or like just a basic fountain pen once, and I've never used one before, and it's just like it just makes writing a little more enjoyable, and you can get one pretty cheap.
What's one piece of advice that you wished you knew earlier back on when you started off your journey?
I think taking breaks and like reflecting is something that I think I still don't do enough now, and I think most people don't do enough of. And like, especially during like the bull run, like taking a week or 2 just off, it was so difficult to do in that time. But like, I think taking stock and coming up with a strategy and having that plan is probably something that everyone would do well to do.
Zooming out and reflecting. One thing that people should avoid doing?
Drinking alcohol. That's
I'll ask the next one, which is very interesting, and I guess I'm knowing one of the 4 people that you would choose to mentor you, dead or alive.
4, did you say?
Yeah.
Yes, Seneca would be great. I think Richard Feynman would be really, really cool. He's someone I really always respect a lot of. Tim Ferriss, I think. Well, yeah, I think Tim Ferriss. Yeah, Tim Ferriss, I think would be super
Yeah,
interesting.
Tim is all right.
Yeah, he's great. And then one more, Buddha. Yeah,
Nice.
yeah,
Great table.
I think so.
Yeah, 100%. When you feel overwhelmed or unfocused, what do you do to get back to your center?
Go for a walk is a good one. Have a shower. Those are probably the two big ones. Yeah.
Not a cold one.
Well, I like cold showers,
I'm
but in
joking.
Dubai,
I'm
they're honestly, I really do. Like, not every day, but like I do feel good after them. You just can't have them here either. It's you put the water to all the way cold, and it's like lukewarm because of how hot the pipes are. Yeah.
What's one question that you would wish people would ask you and they didn't? Is there anything?
I mean, the one I like is what's your favorite book? So you've already asked that. I think yeah, I mean, I like talking about like the future of humanity in terms of like where, like just big picture stuff, where we're all headed with AI and where we're headed with content creation. And I think it's just a super interesting topic that doesn't get spoken about enough. And I think about it a lot.
100%. And if you're talking about like things that we should worry and real world problems, like this whole fake and actually authenticating it.
Yeah,
big one.
I think so. Yeah.
100%. Okay, last one. What's the most counterintuitive lesson you've learned in your entrepreneurial journey?
Probably that less is generally more when it comes to this, like in many respects. So like the things that we do and like the initiatives like Zen Academy, or even as me as a content creator, I was like, oh, it's got to be better if I start creating YouTube content as well. It's got to be better if I'm on LinkedIn and Instagram. It's got to be better if we launch this initiative and partner with this project. Generally, it was better to stick to one thing and do it well. It's got to be better if we hire more people, because then we can do more stuff. But then that comes with like managerial overhead and all this kind of stuff. And so like probably would have been better to have a smaller, more tight-knit group of people. And so I think it's very easy and tempting, and probably especially for like a first-time founder and build and creator like I am, to think, oh yeah, we just got to do more and more and more. But like, you know, sticking it to like do one thing really, really well, I think is just better, and do it for longer than you probably think that you should. Like it's very difficult, I think, because in the bull market especially, but just whenever, like as you start to grow, more and more opportunities come up and like people reach out and like, hey, and you're like, oh my God, people want to do stuff with me and this sounds great. And yeah, of course I'll invest in your company, or of course I'll be an advisor for your project, or of course I'll, you know, attend your event or do a pod, like whatever it is. It's easy to say yes to a million things. And I think you really need to think about like what's clear to like building your brand or your vision, or like whatever it is you're doing, your company, what your goals are and like what works towards that. And some things are great for that, some things are not, and it's very easy to get distracted. So just less is more. Yeah,
especially when you're growing, you have so many more opportunities and so many more people that are reaching out.
Yeah.
Roy, it's been a blast. I really enjoyed the time. Thanks for being here. Thanks for the interview. And for the people that in the audience, if you're not following Roy, so obviously on Twitter, the newsletter, LinkedIn, if you want, we'll send the link to the YouTube too. And if there is any other link and any other way people can reach out to you, we'll put it too in the show notes. Anything else to add before we're wrapping up?
No, that's all. I'll just mention again that we have our PFPs coming out next month. So just keep an eye out for that, because I think that the art is really spectacular. We have an amazing artist from Thailand creating it, plus 2 other artists. So, you know, we don't need more PFPs in the space, but I think that because we already have an existing community, giving them one to have and represent themselves, and hopefully some new members might want to pick one up. I think I'm pretty excited by it. And I think just I want people to keep an eye out for it.
Awesome. Looking forward to it too. Thank you again. Have a great day ahead, guys. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.